Hey, it's State of State. We got your Nittany Line update. It's a football discussion with Tom and Justin, so kick back and press play.
With former Penn State and NFL defensive back Justin King, I'm Tom Hannafin. This is State of State. This podcast is presented by BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline is every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on BetOnline's $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. When the games are over, head to the online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of over 150 slots games. Head to betonline.ag today to get in on the action. State of State is presented by BetOnline. The game starts here. State of State is proud to partner with Illumination Brewing for another season of crafting State IPA, the perfect tailgate and game day beer for Penn State football fans. State IPA is available now at your local beer distributor, grocery store, plus select bars and restaurants. Visit illuminationbrewing.com/beer/state-IPA to learn more. Must be 21 years or older to purchase. Please drink responsibly. Also, State of State is a proud supporter of Blue White Outfitters. Blue White Outfitters was created as a retail shop meant to highlight the confidence, competitiveness, and fearlessness of the elite athletes found throughout the history of Penn State University. Check out their Lockdown U and Lawn Boys merchandise today, and keep an eye out for State of State apparel coming soon. All sales from Blue White Outfitters directly benefit Penn State student athletes. Visit www.bluewhiteoutfitters.com today. Hi, everyone, and welcome to State of State. I'm Tom Hannafin. He's Justin King. Penn State sits at 4-0, number 7 in the country, and this weekend they will host the UCLA Bruins, formerly of the Pac-12 and now the Big Ten. It's a brand new world here in the Big Ten. They changed the commercial and everything. We are literally coast to coast. So this is going to be a fun opportunity to play a relatively new team in the scape of Penn State teams, Penn State opportunities, and especially hosting them in Happy Valley. Can Penn State maintain their momentum following the victory against Illinois? And can they avoid looking ahead, considering the following week they'll be on the road at currently ranked number 11, USC? Like, comment, subscribe, rate us, turn on notifications. As always, get at us on social media at State of State Pod. Get in our comment section on YouTube. And if you haven't done so already, you can become a member of our YouTube channel for just 99 cents a month. You get all upcoming episodes of State of State ad-free. You can hit the join button on our homepage, or you can follow the link in the description of this podcast. Again, become a member today for just 99 cents a month. No ads. It's the best thing in the world. Quick little piece of housekeeping. This Saturday, immediately following the game, we will be live on our YouTube channel for a recap of Penn State versus UCLA. So the game is going to kick off at 12 p.m. Eastern on Fox. It's a part of Big Noon Kickoff. Again, we will be live immediately following Penn State UCLA on our YouTube channel. Justin, we've had a couple of days now to kind of process what happened against Illinois. Positive victory, a lot of good things to take away, and even in the words of James Franklin, a lot of things to clean up that are correctable mistakes. You always are trying to avoid mistakes, but when you hear that they're easily correctable, that's certainly a positive. Now that you've had a few days to process it, how are you feeling about the victory?
I felt good. I felt good on Saturday. I didn't realize everybody had different emotions.
Yeah, social media is like we lost. I'm like, it's kind of weird.
That's why I try to stay off of it as much as possible. But you got to market and do different stuff. But even when I found out and just got the temperature from the fan base, I was just kind of like, man, it sucks that people don't understand the game of football that much. But I understand when you're watching against like exciting things or what you expect to be. But it's like the identity matches up. Tough, gritty win. Haven't had those type of wins too much in the past, and I think that shows that again we like a two-dimensional team from the standpoint of being physical and can attack in different ways. And I still feel good about the win. I mean, we've won different ways and show we can score different in different manners, right, with different players. I was kind of dumbfounded by the pushback on the W.
Yeah, the feeling on social media is, why didn't Drew Aller have a bigger game? Why didn't Abdul Carter look more explosive? Too many penalties, points left on the field, kicking's a problem. Like, I'm going to agree with you that penalties are a problem, that kicking is a problem. Completely understand those things. Not to point you in the direction of another podcast, but take a look at Thomas Frank Carr, T. Frank on Blue White Illustrated, the way he broke down Penn State versus Illinois, especially from Abdul Carter's standpoint. And you can articulate this far better than I will ever be able to. But Abdul Carter, does the Penn State fan expect him to get a sack every play? I'm confused as to what their expectations are, because when you see, and I mentioned T. Frank, he did this great breakdown of so many instances where he'd draw two blockers to him and free up his teammates to make plays. And then he also made plays on top of that, tackles for loss, sacks. I mean, I don't know what more you can ask of the guy who's only 4 games into playing this hybrid DN linebacker job.
I mean, I think Tom did a great job moving him around this past week, right? Like playing that spy position, playing defensive end, a little bit of outside linebacker. And when you can move him around and just the dynamic athlete that he is, I mean, like an X factor type of player like him, can't limit it to just, hey, why didn't he rush the passer? Why didn't he get sacks? Like, no, he impacted the game. He closed out the game. He had pass breakers on third down. It's just like, I don't know what people were evaluating. And I think that's a lot of sometimes the issues within football, even from the standpoint of you have the PFF. So you have so many scouts writing about different things and evaluating. A lot of people just really don't know what they're talking about. Right. And it's sad. I mean, not sad to say, but it is what it is. But because, the loud opinions kind of reign through. And if you watch the film, I mean, I thought he had a really good game. You know what I mean? So I was like kind of confused about expecting, I don't know, like sacks every play, or he impacted the game the way he was supposed to.
From multiple positions that, again, I want to emphasize, this is 4 games for him at the Big Ten level as a defensive end on paper. Now, yes, we've identified the ways in that they're utilizing him in his conventional linebacker responsibilities that we saw last year. But 4 games in, and he's doing the little things that defensive linemen need to do to set up their teammates to execute the play, because it's not always about number 11. They could be calling somebody else's number to try and get to the quarterback, and number 11 is a part of that process, is a part of that bait, even at times. So I've been very impressed by the way he's played. And again, I continue to feel this way. I think his best games are still ahead of him, and he's having good performances, as is the entirety of the defensive line. The only issue that James Franklin raised in his post-game press conference is that the defensive line has been suspect to jump off sides a lot. So now the refs are looking for it. So it's a bit of a problem. Deion Barnes and company, can they get corrected this week? In your experience, how do you clean that up quickly?
You start punishing guys that jump off sides. That's the only way that's the only way you do it. But
discipline in a lot of capacities after the game.
Yeah, I mean, and he's right about that. And it's a fine line too, because at the same time, you want him to have great get-offs and anticipate the jump of the snap and different things of that nature when you're playing defensive line. So, I mean, it's just like having, like you said, discipline with the aggression it's a fine balance. So I just think they need to tip it a little bit more into the discipline side and keep their ears pinned back. But I'd much rather the whoa buddy than the sick 'em. So I think if we're still in the phase of the defense is like sick 'em, it's like, all right, let's clean it up. I think those are nice things to correct at the first quarter of the season versus like they're not getting off the ball, they're getting blown off the ball, and it's like They're playing soft. Like that's the other side of the coin when the discipline piece. I mean, it's like DBs, like the ones that have a lot of interceptions, they typically get beat more often, right? It's the risk reward of the game, and we have to understand what do you want to take and the identity in which you can handle.
We talked about it going into Illinois, is that you and I both felt that game was going to be won in the trenches. Penn State's offensive line beat Illinois' defensive line physically, and vice versa. Penn State's defensive line assaulted Illinois' offensive line. Like, that's not a trait of a Penn State offense that we felt in quite some time.
No, we haven't. And I mean, again, it goes back to just the identity of Penn State, right? Just type of players that they get, whether it's just like a little bit gritty players interior, and then on the outside having some dynamic athletes. I mean, yeah, I'm I don't have too much to say about it. I mean, it was a well-executed football game. Obviously, you want to see a little bit more. I don't know if you want to see more. You want 21-7. You know, the quarterback did what he was supposed to do. Like, control the game. Get out of there.
It's building off of it. And again, there were 12 points left on the field. So if all you did was look up the box score and you saw 21-7, maybe you're a little disappointed. Watch the game. Trust me. There's so many games that went down this past weekend where the score did not tell the story. The Alabama-Georgia score, I believe, was 41-34. It did not feel like that close of a game. A little bit in the second half. The first half, it felt like Bama was the greatest team on earth. And I believe they're number one in the rankings as of this past weekend. Deservedly so. It's just, I think there's little things to be cleaned up, which is natural. And you're getting to do that at the right time of the year. UCLA is not going to be in the top half or top 2/3 of the Big Ten this year. They are really struggling. So this is a good opportunity at home, again, before you go on the road for the first time in Big Ten play this season, coast to coast. You go to Los Angeles to play the USC Trojans. Furthermore, James Franklin talked after the Illinois game. I mentioned discipline, and I'm curious how you feel about this. He was talking about, he's like, as good as we played, we made it a lot harder than it needed to be. That's on me and us as coaches. We've got to provide more discipline. And he mentioned in meetings, when you're taking notes, sitting up straight. You've worked for the man. Can you give me a glimpse into Lash and Haluba this week when James Franklin's focus is discipline?
Well, it's funny you say that because I think the discipline talk, it just historically in football, I mean, it's typically at the defensive line, right? I mean, I mean, defensive linemen are one of my favorite positions, but like when you're dealing with them, man, you're dealing with guys that are typically used to being bigger bullies and they just kind of operate in a different manner. So like you have to put a little bit more reins around just that group, the good groups, right? I mean, like, cause the soft groups or the groups that aren't very good, they are not, I'm not going to use the word discipline, but they're not undisciplined, right? I'm just saying when you get the good ones, I haven't been around any good defensive linemen that didn't like shake it up a little bit. Like Tomlin and all those, like, you know, you got to play discipline on the field. Like that, don't get me wrong, but that's just a part of controlling that defensive line group. So I'm sure that Dion Barnes and the defense is going to hear some words about, you know, 5 minutes early, have the notes out, get some pokes in the room during film set, you know, just a little bit of stuff like that. Quality control.
Quality control is a good way to put it. And there's, again, all these mistakes that James Franklin talked about being correctable. That's encouraging. And now it's like, okay, you got to put it into practice. I'm curious to see what comes of the kicking competition that James Franklin said is going to be ongoing. It sounds like this week. We know about Chase Meyer, Ryan Barker, and Sanders Sahadak. Sahadak has struggled 0 for 2 on field goals against Illinois. Again, 12 points were left on the field. The pick 6 that got called back because of Zion Tracy's penalty, and then 2 missed field goals. So it's just points that you can't afford to leave on the field when you play a USC, when you play an Ohio State this season. So the kicking battle during the week, have you witnessed that firsthand as a staffer, and how intense can that be? How much pressure can that put on the incumbent right now in Sahadak?
I mean, the position has built-in stress to it. So, I mean, it's just another, I think it's a little more about accountability and transparency. When the whole team is like watching like a kickoff battle at the end of the practice, like we've done those. Like, hey, you get 3 kicks from here, you get 3 kicks, and whoever wins, like when you see it, I mean, that's competition. I mean, he breeds, they say what, like it's one of the most competitive environments in college football. Like that is a part of the makeup at Penn State, even from dealing with players or going into it. Like you have to be honest with yourself. Like if you're not, that's not what you want, you probably shouldn't go there. But that being said, I mean, when you lose confidence as a kicker, that can be a pretty heavy load to try to get off of you. And so, I mean, I think it's, again, transparency is for the whole team to see like, okay, we're going to watch you guys, because it's very isolating as even a player or a kicker to miss a kick and have to go back to your teammates and do all that good stuff. So I think I mean, you'll probably see a kickoff throughout the week, and, you know, maybe you have to build that competitive stamina and, you know, nerves of steel to play the position. So I think that's just comes with the territory.
Yeah, we'll see who gets trotted out there predominantly this Saturday against UCLA. And to wrap up kind of the talk about Illinois, and I want to do preview what the Bruins are all about. A lot of the conversation, as you mentioned on social media, about Drew Aller at quarterback was, man, like the numbers are low, or he just doesn't feel like he's taken that step or something like that. And I'm like, I just don't understand this. I'm watching the game and I see the things that he does still need to work on. There are things that were raised in his scouting report from high school of, okay, his footwork, his mechanics sometimes can lapse, and he needs to just stay consistent with those. And occasionally he'll get locked into certain guys and he'll miss the open guy. There are a handful of those against Illinois, but those becoming less and less. You did see against Illinois when they were able to flush him out of the pocket that he would have instances where he was throwing without his mechanics off base. He was just kind of trusting his arm. I think there's a lot of people that expect him to be Patrick Mahomes and be able to throw off platform. I know that's really attractive and sexy now for younger players. It's not the way to play quarterback. Patrick Mahomes is one of one. So I don't know. I get why you would emulate him, but it doesn't make any real logical sense. Drew Aller, when he plants his feet and he throws, is maybe the best passer in the country. So when he's off balance, he's just got to clean up those little things like any quarterback has to. But I continue to see positive progression from him. And you mentioned it in the recap episode after Illinois, is that he wasn't asked to be a volume thrower. And I don't think him being a volume thrower in this offense would be indicative of things are going well for Penn State in this game, right? Like looking at the way, for instance, Oregon is playing, there's instances they want to get pass happy and they want Dylan Gabriel to throw 40 times or more. He can. It all depends on your personal preference. But James Franklin said after the Illinois game, you have 3 ball carriers between Singleton, Allen, and Perbula, averaging 6 yards per carry. Why the hell would you get away from the run game?
I mean, like, why would you, right? Like, I mean, that comes down to just being in the head of the coaches and the coordinators from like operating a game plan. It's like, yeah, because if they got away from the run and it was effective, you scream like, why are we passing the ball and we're running should have just kept running the football. So it's always hindsight's 2020 when it comes to fan critique or anything of that nature. But I mean, like he said, if we're averaging 6 yards a clip, why stop? Because like in the moment, that wears down the defense. You take, like Nick Singleton said, like, you run somebody over, take the soul out of them. Like that's a thing in football that a lot of pedestrians do not understand. So like when that happens, that's a nice flex that maybe you don't see, but it's a real thing. And I think the team builds confidence in those type of wins as well. That it's like, oh, when we get into, tough mud fights, we can come out on top.
When it comes to this Saturday, Penn State versus UCLA, right now, according to Bet Online, Penn State is getting minus 28.5 on the spread, and the over-under is 44.5. I think Penn State covers this, and I might take the over on this, and that I expect that UCLA will be able to score, but not anything dramatic. They've yet to score over 20 points this season. I'm curious to see what they do at quarterback. Their starter, Ethan Garbers, was hobbled in the game against Oregon. He came out. 4-star quarterback Justin Martin is the backup, has a lot of ability, is an LA kid. So that's something that you have to keep an eye on. He could be one of the better dual threat looks that Penn State gets this year. Is still extremely green, is still very, very green, but has a lot of velocity as a thrower. He can run, not necessarily just one or the other. So I think that's going to be an interesting test if it is Martin. If Garbers can go, Garbers is more your traditional pocket passer, and he has struggled this year with his accuracy. When he's on, he's on. When he's off, he's off, and it's just been inconsistent. Deshaun Foster, head coach of the UCLA Bruins, former running back at UCLA, a star in the National Football League with the Carolina Panthers. You want to focus on running the ball. You have Eric Bieniemy, formerly of the multi-time Super Bowl champions Kansas City Chiefs, as your offensive coordinator. So it's not going to be pass happy. They're going to want to run the ball. But unfortunately for UCLA's sake, they have struggled to consistently run the ball well. They've struggled to consistently pass the ball well. Just about the only thing that is a glimmer of positivity is that defensively, UCLA has had some success stopping the run. And I hate this matchup for UCLA. For any UCLA fans that are watching, I apologize. I just don't think this is really your game. From your understanding, this is a good UCLA coaching staff, but it just doesn't feel like they have collected the talent necessary yet.
Jimmy's and Joe's, not X's and O's. And this is a prime example of it, especially when you get a new staff and regardless of how great they are, they can maximize that talent, put them in the greatest positions to win. But at the end of the day, big people move smaller people, faster people run past slower people. Like that is just the makeup of the game. So if you want to, that's just kind of what it is from a base standpoint. And so, I mean, I think we have more talent than them. You're absolutely right. So as long as we don't kill ourselves and play sloppy or play down to their level, I think it's a pretty one-sided game.
This episode of State of State is presented in part by Melon. Now, for those of you who've been watching this podcast for quite some time, you know that Justin and I are both big hat guys. Now, when I was introduced to Melon, I immediately saw how durable and comfortable their hats are. Great color options, great sizing options as well. For me, someone who likes to go to a lot of different football games and tailgates throughout the year, I need a hat that's going to be flexible depending on the weather. If it's hot out, I want something that's breathable, and that's something that Melon hats provide. And also, if it's inclement weather, that's going to be nasty out, then I need a hat that's not going to lose its shape if you get them wet. In fact, if you need to wash a Melon hat, they come right back to life and they look brand new if you throw them in the wash. So that's something I absolutely love. So if you're looking for a hat as tough as you, check out Melon. You won't wear anything else after you get one for yourself. If you're looking for the world's most durable hat, look no further. Go to melon.com. That's MELIN.com and put it to the test yourself. This podcast is brought to you in part by Cherry Bundy. Cherry Bundy is a recovery product that's in the locker room for the Penn State Nittany Lions football program, and we are so proud to have them as a sponsor to get the message out there to help you with your fitness, your performance, and your recovery. Tart cherries are the highest antioxidant fruit or vegetable in the world. They're a natural anti-inflammatory with incredible benefits such as reduced soreness, increased recovery, contains naturally occurring melatonin to help improve your sleep and also help support your immunity. Cherry Bundy is used by nearly 500 collegiate and professional sports teams, including Penn State. That's 66 out of 67 Power 4 conference football teams, plus every NCAA football and basketball national champion since 2007. Goes deeper than that. In the National Football League, 10 of the last 11 Super Bowl champions have used Cherry Bundy. Every team playing in Europe or Brazil this season had Cherry Bundy with them. You can check out Cherry Bundy right now at cherrybundy.com or Amazon. UCLA coming into this, they are tied for 89th in the country, 205 passing yards per game. They are on 133rd in running the ball, averaging 57 yards per game on the ground. Points for, they're 128th. They average maybe 15 points a game, and points against, they're 105th. They allow 30.8 points per game. I have a feeling that Penn State's going to be able to put up some points. And for all of you who have been hoping to see Drew Aller really get after it, well, this might be the game where he pads some stats, because this is the secondary that got burned by Oregon. So I expect Penn State to potentially have similar opportunities. However, I don't expect to see Penn State get away from the running game. Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, you let those guys go to work. You stick with your bread and butter. You might not have to get terribly crazy with your play calling offensively to beat this UCLA team comfortably. And again, you got USC around the corner. So what are you putting on tape to try and set up the Trojans? One thing I'm going to be focused on, and I'm curious how you feel about this, is that we're awaiting to hear what's going on with Sal Wormley and JB Nelson, two guards who went down in the game against Illinois. Penn State was down to true freshman Cooper Cousins, who has a lot of ability, but still very thin now at the interior of the offensive line. Knowing that, do you expect Andy Kotelnicki to maybe take his foot off the gas when it comes to the run game just for this one weekend, or do you think business as usual?
I think it's business as usual. I mean, I think anytime, like, quote Mike Tomlin, the standard is the standard. I don't think you change up your whole offense based on just those two guys. Now, if it comes down to that, you can't do that. I think that's why he's set up a lot of different looks throughout the first 5 games to show and do different things, whether it's misdirection, getting on edges versus right between the eyes. And as long as the guys are still playing at a high level, I think you can make up for that. So, I mean, I think it's still business as usual. It seems that they're very confident in their approach, whether it's a slow and methodic, beat you down, boom, 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 explosive play here and there. Yeah, the rhythm of how they have been calling their offense and executing it has been, I mean, consistent. So I don't expect it to change.
I agree with that. And again, there could be opportunities for Drew Hauer to just have some explosive plays in the passing game. Not that he hasn't already. They were limited by Illinois. Credit to Illinois. That's a good defense. That's one of the better teams you're going to play in the Big Ten this year. So I'll call them shortcomings, but like even the moments of challenge against Illinois that I think Penn State fans are maybe getting hung up on, the lack of high productivity when it comes to explosive plays against Illinois. I don't think it's really cause for alarm. And that's what I felt when I went on social media and I saw a lot of Penn State fans reacting to this game. It felt like Penn State shut down Illinois' strength, just like they did against West Virginia, a Power 4 team. And now it's like, okay, well, you just kind of keep rolling with that model. I don't know. I'm still struggling with what social media thinks of this team versus what you and I have seen.
I mean, that's why I think you just take it with a grain of salt. And I think it's more, it goes to like that fan investment that we spoke of, right? Whether it wasn't the most exciting game to watch or it just wasn't appealing to the casual, but take it with a grain of salt. At the W by 2 scores from the top 20 team.
As James Franklin put it, when you force someone out of the way that they want to play, good things can happen, pointing towards Illinois wanted to run the football and stop the run, and they didn't do any of that against Penn State. So hats off to the Nittany Lions and this coaching staff. When you look at Penn State's defense, one thing that I think was interesting, James Franklin was talking about some of the things the defense needs to clean up going forward and tackling better. And he said, defensively, we play a heavy man coverage with outside leverage. So that was something I also saw a lot of fans reacting to on social media, was the fact that there are a lot of free inside releases on a lot of slants, RPOs, seam routes, those sorts of things that Illinois and other teams, notably Bowling Green, have been able to take advantage of. Saw a little bit from West Virginia in the first half, but nothing really too crazy. From your experience, you've evaluated this team for a while. Obviously, we're big fans of Lockdown U. But what do you want to see from the defensive backs after the game against Illinois?
After? I mean, just stay the course. I mean, like you said, they play outside man leverage. So when you do that, you squeeze the slants and things happen, right? Whether it's a bat down by an inside defender, like when we play outside leverage and man coverage, you're having cutters that are kind of coming underneath. So it's like inviting all that mush into the middle of the field and testing the offense to continue to throw it. And then you see some plays being made. Like there's a pick 6 that was off the board. So I don't really know, besides cleaning up the penalty on that. I mean, just keep doing it and creating turnovers. It's elementary stuff.
when you're funneling those many guys inside, the Illinois didn't really exploit it. There will be better teams that Penn State faces that maybe have the opportunity to exploit that. What is the thought process there from a defensive standpoint?
Well, I mean, I think like more so than just man outside leverage. I think it's probably like more of a quarters type of look, right? Where these guys are playing man-like coverages until something happens. Oh, if he goes inside, it goes to the inside defenders. And if anything's up, you play it like it's man. That's what I would assume that he's saying. I mean, the question was what, like, how do you, like, you're funneling people inside and how do we go about that?
I guess having never played at the Big Ten level, I'm just curious in terms of what is then the responsibility of the interior of the defense when you're funneling those things, and not saying you're electing to give up those things, but it's like, hey, we'll let you beat us with this, or not beat us, but we'll give you this, but we're not going to give you over the top, the outside.
Yeah, if we're talking like 4-yard catches and tackles, it's like that's you go about that. You make a play on it or you don't, but then it sets you up to play different things, right? Then you can play cover 2 with that same outside leverage look. They do that, you got to cut it right there, and boom, it's a pick. So it creates a uniformity across the board when you're playing quarters, outside man, cover 2, and all those different things from outside leverage. It's hard for whether the receivers are getting a beat on what they have to do from like a sight adjustment from the quarterback. So just giving the offense the same look to be able to do different things. I think it's the same philosophy as almost like a Kotelnicki's doing on offense. It's like, oh, same look, different type of flavor. And I think when you do that from an outside leverage standpoint, I mean, it's a great thing. I didn't start playing outside leverage and man coverages until I got to the NFL and then realized that's what everybody plays, right? You play cover 3 is like a outside man. Quarters is like outside man. Like, I mean, cover 2 turns into cover 4 and it's like outside man. So everything is essentially that type of coverage. That's why you have to understand route combinations and the offense and how they were trying to attack you and different things of that nature. Because I mean, you have to know when to come off, when to drop receivers and different things of that nature. But for the quarterback looking and the receiver, I mean, it all looks the same until things start to happen. So yeah, I think it's actually very good exposure for the defensive backs and for just the transition to the next level to be playing the defense like that. So I think from a personal development standpoint, it's great. And I mean, like, they're doing pretty good when you look at the stats. So
So far, so good. There are these blips where you see like first half, West Virginia gets some opportunities. Bowling Green first half has some opportunities in the pass. You could see how Illinois and Luke Altmaier in the first half did well the pass, but then ultimately just getting shut down. And Tom Allen, to his credit, I saw a lot of people online saying, God, how's Manny Diaz doing at Duke? Can we get Manny Diaz back? And I'm like, first of all, he's 5-0. And I think they just had an 18-point comeback against UNC. So it's like, all right, they're doing all right. And I haven't seen, I think it's a different style of defense and that the personality feels different. And I don't even know how to, like, I think Manny's just a much more aggressive blitzer. And when I say that, I mean
exotic too. And
yeah, and
exotic, like
it's not that Tom Allen isn't, Justin. It's just like it's slightly less on that front. So it just looks like Penn State maybe not taking as many risks in that department. What do you see?
I mean, again, last year we spoke a lot about not being able to stop the run. I mean, hitting those gaps and all those different blitzes that he just sent and the different exposures that had just in the front defensive line last year. Like, leaky plays, but we would have big plays in terms of pressures, right? And I think it's a risk reward. We just spoke about it. I think Tom Allen's like, okay, if you're committed to stopping the run, you can play more base fronts. You have more players, and it's like you don't have to do as much. But if we're stopping the run and giving up 3-4 yard slants and making plays and getting to the ball carrier with violence, all 11 hats on the ball, like those fundamentals of defense, like they both pretty well, right? Like you just look at just historically, like defenses in the NFL, like the Steelers have been playing the same defense for 50 years. Yeah, I mean, just historically great defenses. The key is to let guys play fast, and then obviously you can have some defensive coordinators that throw in some different junk or just more exotic looks that can get sexy. But sometimes the fundamentals of running the football can slip through, right? I mean, it's just different ways, and every defense has a strength and somewhat of a liability part of it. And I think that's what it is. I think this one is maybe not as, I won't say as aggressive, but we're not as exposed from like the exotic looks to give up simple runs because we've been stopping the run, I think, all year, like better than we did last year. So, I mean, it's just like, what are you judging it based on? In totality, I just think if the coordinator is doing what they're trying to do, then I give them the nod. And if it's like they're trying to stop the run and they're not stopping the run and it's not, it's not exotic and all that stuff, then you have a problem. But both coordinators are staying true to their identity and what they're known for. And everybody has blips or, places that you can expose them. And I think that's what we're just talking about. And as long as you minimize the exposure, great.
Bingo. Right now, Penn State per Bet Online has the spread by 28.5. Over under is 44.5. I feel pretty good about Penn State covering the spread, and I feel pretty good about it over there. I expect UCLA to maybe have a few scores here and there, but nothing earth-shattering in that department. Like, comment, subscribe, rate us, turn on notifications, get at us on social media at State of State Pod, get in our comments section on YouTube, and you can also become a member of our YouTube channel. Now, for just 99 cents a month, you can get all upcoming episodes of State of State ad-free. Hit the join button on our homepage, or you can follow the link in the description of this podcast. A reminder, we will be live on our YouTube channel, not under the membership stuff. It's just going to be out there on our YouTube channel. We'll be live immediately following Penn State versus UCLA this Saturday. The game starts at 12 p.m. Eastern. It's a part of Fox's Big Noon Kickoff. Again, it'll be live on Fox at 12 p.m. Eastern, a kickoff from Happy Valley. Number 7 Penn State hosts UCLA with USC and a road trip right around the corner. Penn State looking to take care of business here in the Big Ten. Thank you all so much for joining us. This episode and our entire library of shows is available now on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and wherever else you get your podcasts. Also, let us know what you think of the show on social media and check out all of our content on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Search for the handle at State of State Pod. State of State is presented by Bet Online and by Blue White Outfitters.